When President Nixon signed the National Cancer Act of 1971, he launched a new era in the annals of cancer treatment and research. For the first time, the resources of the federal government, and equally important, the focus of presidential involvement, would be directed at one disease. At the White House signing ceremony on December 23rd, he expressed his high hopes for this unprecedented initiative.
Members of the Senate, members of the House, ladies and gentlemen, we are here today for the purpose of signing the Cancer Act of 1971. And I hope that in the years ahead that we may look back on this day and this action as being the most significant action taken during this administration. It could be, because when we consider what cancer does each year in the United States, we find that more people each year die of cancer in the United States than all the Americans who lost their lives in World War II. This shows us what is at stake. It tells us why I sent a message to the Congress, the first of this year, which provided for a national commitment for the conquest of cancer, to attempt to find a cure.
While his hopes were high, his expectations were realistic.
We would not want to raise false hopes by simply the signing of an act. But we can say this, that for those who have cancer and who are looking for success in this field, they at least can have the assurance that everything that can be done by government, everything that can be done by voluntary agencies in this great, powerful, rich country now will be done. And that will give some hope, and we hope those hopes will not be disappointed.
The work and advocacy of philanthropist Mary Lasker and the counsel of his friend Elmer Bobst had played pivotal roles in the president's personal interest in this legislation. During the Nixon administration, both houses of Congress were controlled by the Democratic Party, and passage of the National Cancer Act was a case study in bipartisanship.
This is an indication of the priorities. You know, the Congress had a very long session and finally got adjourned. We all appreciated that fact, incidentally. But once they adjourned, they did too. But once they adjourned and they were to go home and go on their vacations, to have this many members of the House and Senate who are members of the committee back here shows how deeply they feel. And I think that for that reason we'd like to record this for a picture. So go ahead. We don't have to tell House and Senate members how to get in the picture.
At the beginning of 1971, in his State of the Union address on January 22nd, the president announced a bold vision.
I will also ask for an appropriation of an extra $100 million to launch an intensive campaign to find a cure for cancer, and I will ask later for whatever additional funds can effectively be used. The time has come in America when the same kind of concentrated effort that split the atom and took man to the moon should be turned toward conquering this dread disease.
Legislation followed, and in May, he gave an update and stressed his personal involvement.
You will recall that in the State of the Union message, I announced a program of $100 million to find a cure for cancer. In order to implement the program, the Secretary of HEW sent to the Congress today legislation that will set up a program, the Cancer Cure Program, in the National Institute of Health. This, however, will differ from other programs in a very important respect. This program I have asked be the one program within the National Institute of Health and within the whole health establishment of the United States that is independently budgeted and that is directly responsible to the President of the United States. I have assumed this responsibility, I've asked this responsibility because of a very deep personal concern about this problem, as many millions of American families have concern about the problem, and also because I believe that direct presidential interest and presidential guidance may hasten the day that we will find a cure for cancer. I remember perhaps my favorite aunt, my Aunt Elizabeth, died with cancer when she was just 32 years of age. And she was a wonderful person, so full of life, and my mother's, I think, favorite sister. We could, each of us in our lives, think of personal examples of what this disease does and how it takes strong men and strong women and destroys them in a matter of a few weeks or months or at best a year. Now there have been some very significant breakthroughs that indicate that we can really look forward to the day that we can find a cure for cancer. It doesn't mean it's going to come quickly. How quickly it will come will depend upon the amount of effort that is put in and also depend upon the genius of those who are working on the problem. But as far as the cure is concerned, and as far as the time when it is found, it will not fail because of lack of money. If $100 million this year is not enough, we will provide more money. To the extent money is needed, it will be provided. It will not fail for lack of organization. The organization that is being set up will call upon all of the resources of the National Institute of Health, and of course you cannot separate any one disease out without having the various experts in the other fields being able to make a contribution. And finally, it will not suffer for a lack of organization being directed and having special presidential interest.
Each year, the President requested additional funds for cancer research. In 1972, $400 million. In 1973, $500 million. And in 1974, his last year in the White House, he requested an additional $600 million. During the Nixon administration, more than $1.5 billion went to cancer research and treatment. In November 2021, the American Medical Association's journal Oncology reported that mortality rates for all cancers combined had dropped by 27% since 1971 and by 32% since 1991, when mortality rates were highest. In a 1985 interview, the former president responded to a question from Barbara Walters.
How would you like to be remembered?
I suppose everyone would like to be remembered particularly for his major achievements. Most people would point, for example, to the opening to China, which changed the world. But as I look back during the White House years, I think, for example, of an initiative which many people have forgotten, the Cancer Initiative. You remember we started that in 1971, and it was brought home to me just a couple of days ago. My brother, Don, has cancer. It's a very serious case. He's now taking radiation and chemotherapy. 10 years ago, his doctor told him he would be dead. So that initiative may have helped prolong his life and the life of other cancer patients. What I'm suggesting here is that we all think of, well, he went to China. He ended the war in Vietnam. He opened relations with the Soviet Union through détente. But in my view, if the Cancer Initiative, which we began, could save lives, that'd be worth all the rest put together.